My name is Danon, welcome to Ahnestly. At this point, I reviewed about 70 chairs ranging from about $20 to $2,500. But today, I wanted to find what is the best chair in that $100 to $200-ish price point. So to do that, I picked up 7 highly rated chairs off of Amazon with my hard-earned money. If you like that, like, subscribe, do whatever you gotta do. And we're gonna test out to see which ones are the best. Now, thankfully, this video is gonna be fairly short because instantly I was able to disqualify 5 chairs. Let's get honest. No matter how comfortable my chair is, I always find myself fidgeting, and spinner toys, they're okay. But this is next level. This is a trainer butterfly knife from a company called Knives Matter, who is today's video sponsor. Knives Matter sells really cool trainer butterfly knives with designs inspired by the super popular game Counter-Strike. You can also get a mystery box where they have designs not available for individual sale. They also have practice karambits, and they're made out of rubber so they can't hurt anybody, and they also have some pretty cool designs for these things as well. Of the two, I definitely prefer the trainer butterfly knife. This thing is buttery smooth, super fun to play with. I've banged up my knuckles already. Link to Knives Matter's Amazon store will be in the description below. Thanks again, Knives Matter, for sponsoring this video. So I'll break down quickly why I disqualified 5 of these chairs, and I promise you it's not because I was trying to keep the video short. It's because relative to these other 2, these 5 are really pretty bad. This is the Efomao chair. This is by far the most expensive chair on this list at $300, and it looks super duper cushy. I had really high hopes. It's even got a built-in footrest. But when I sat in it, I was instantly disappointed. The backrest actually feels pretty good. It's nice and cushy, but the seat on this thing is a huge deal breaker. So they've got these 4 divided sections of padding, and I don't know if it's because there's air trapped in there or what's going on, but when you sit in it, you feel these giant 4 pillars on your butt and your legs. It is not comfortable. The best way I can describe it is like, imagine if you had 4 pool noodles, and then you split them apart by like 3 inches each, and then you tried sitting on top of it. That's the kind of experience you get on this. It is not great whatsoever. Hard pass. This thing even came with a chair cleaner. You broke my heart, Efomao. You broke my heart. Next chair to be disqualified is the Ticova chair. Now this is actually a pretty decent chair. So why am I disqualifying it? Well, unfortunately, there's a better chair, a better version of this chair called the SIHOO M18. I think it's better in many ways, which I'll explain when I break that chair down. And it's also cheaper than the Ticova, which means this one gets the axe. The next 3 chairs to be disqualified are the Kerdom chair, the Mimoglad chair, and the Gabrylly chair. And I picked these 3 up, hoping to find a decent chair where the armrest could swivel up and away. And unfortunately, these 3 are not it. Let's start with the Mimoglad chair. So of all the chairs on this list, the Mimoglad has by far the worst seat cushion. When I sit in it, I instantly feel the bottom, and if you don't instantly, well then I'm pretty sure this thing is gonna get flat really quickly. And again, for reference, I'm about 175 pounds. In addition to that, the build quality on this chair is pretty terrible. So when you sit in it, it doesn't feel very stable. As a matter of fact, I feel a lot of rocking in the left and right on this chair. That to me is an indication of not great build quality. Now, when it comes to the actual arm tilting it up and away, you can see that it doesn't fully go up and away. It actually hangs in front of the backrest, which means that when you put your arms back, my triceps, the side of my triceps are running into this, and I feel like I'm not able to even open my chest up or even sit comfortably in this chair without my arms being tugged on. Now, I have baby shoulders. I've got these really narrow shoulders. If you have broader shoulders than me, this isn't just gonna hit the outside of your tricep, it might even be digging into your tricep. So Mimoglad, more like Mimo not so glad. The Kerdom chair's seat cushion is a little bit better than the Mimoglad's. It is a little bit thicker, but not that much better. And the biggest drawback of this chair is gonna be same thing. With these armrests, when you tilt it up, it actually hangs more in front than the Mimoglad here. So when you sit in it, it actually feels like you're locked into this position. Like it feels not claustrophobic, but it doesn't feel like you get any movement in this chair because your arms are literally locked inside. Now, if you're broader, again, you might not feel locked, but you might even be sitting on the outside of it, which makes it even more uncomfortable. Even more damning for these 2 is the fact that their functionality, the adjustments are pretty terrible. So you get height adjustment in both of these chairs, and then you get the ability to lock the chair in an upright position, but this chair cannot lock in multiple tilt back positions. That, compared to some of these other chairs, especially the Gabrylly, which can do it, makes these chairs an even less appealing option here. We finally moved to the Gabrylly chair. The Gabrylly chair of all these have the best tilt-away arms. Let me move these 2 chairs out of the way. And as you can see, when I go ahead and tilt the arms down and swivel them up, the Gabrylly actually goes behind the backrest. And that means when you sit in the chair with the arms tucked away, you're not banging into anything, you're not crashing into anything, you're not restricted by anything, and they're totally out of the way. The reason why the Gabrylly has been disqualified though is because this seat mesh is pretty terrible. Not only is it really narrow and it feels really small, but on top of that, seat mesh should be like a hammock for your booty. But on this chair, for some reason, when I sit on it, it feels like there are 2 bricks on each of my butt cheeks. I'm not exactly sure what's going on here. I just know that it feels really, really uncomfortable. If they had replaced this with a decent seat cushion like that found on the SIHOO, I would even say even the Kerdom, right? Like if they could keep it like 150 and use the seat cushion on the Kerdom, then I think this would be a viable option. But with this mesh, it's not gonna work. Putting this review together took a lot of time and money. So if you're enjoying it, please like the video, get subscribed, let me know in the comments which chair you would pick up. And if you plan on picking up anything, please consider using my links in the description. All of this really helps keep these objective reviews going, and I really appreciate it. And now for the top 2 chair picks. This is the SIHOO M18, and this is the Clatina Mellet. The SIHOO M18 is really the runner up here, where the Clatina Mellet is the winner, but there are some things about the M18 that you should really consider. So starting from the bottom, working our way up, the legs are made out of metal, and then under the seat adjustments, this is one of the weakest points of the M18 because the seat adjustments are on the right side. You get a tab where you can raise the height up and down, and then you've got your tilt tension lock, so you can lock it here upright, but you can also unlock it and you can tilt back and you can lock in various positions when you're tilted back. And then you get a tilt tension knob, but it's found under the seat right here in the middle. And almost all of these except for this baby here, the Clatina, have them in this position. And that makes it pretty useless because it's really hard to access, really hard to turn. Like how many people do this and turn it? It's just really, really annoying to use. Now, one of the strongest points of the SIHOO M18 is the seat cushion here. This thing is super dense while being super supportive, and I can't imagine this thing bottoming out anytime soon. These SIHOO seats are just incredible. I have some other SIHOO seats, other SIHOO chairs I've reviewed, and I've talked about how these are some of the best seat cushions I've ever tested. They just feel like a really nice kind of memory foam, but really dense. It doesn't feel like they're gonna flatten out anytime soon. It's also really wide, and it's also pretty deep, and we'll talk about the implications of that when it comes to sizing. Now, when it comes to the armrest, this again is one of the weakest points of the SIHOO because the SIHOO arms can go up and down, and that's it. You can't adjust these arm pads in any kind of way. Now, when it comes to the arm pads themselves, they have a divot here, and I personally find these pretty nice because it feels like you get a nice little cushy home for your arms. Feels like you got a nice little place. The downside is that this thing is very slippery. So if you're wearing clothes, it doesn't feel like you're gonna be able to stay flat in that. I know it's just an observation, but they are pretty slippery. The backrest on this chair is pretty short, and in terms of design, it's okay, right? It's using a mesh here, and the mesh is pretty soft, but when you sit in it, I find that it curves inwards a little bit too early, so that when I try to spread, let me put my arms down so you can see it a little more clear, but when I try to pull my arms back and open that chest up, I find that my triceps run into the edge just a little too quickly. Now, I'm not turtled in the chair, but it does feel like I'm not able to really open myself up inside of this chair. When it comes to the lumbar support though, this lumbar is fantastic. First of all, I personally prefer my lumbar to be lower, and this SIHOO M18 lumbar goes the lowest. Compared to the Ticova chair, this lumbar does go much lower than the Ticova. I also forgot to mention that the seat pad compared to the Ticova, the M18 seat pad is phenomenally better, but the armrests are actually weaker. I'm just doing this because I just remembered it now. I hope it's not too much of an interruption. The arm functionality on the Ticova is better because on the Ticova, you can go forward and back and you can swivel left, middle, right. But when it comes to the lumbar support, this thing is better, I think even better than the Clatina, because not only does it go really low, but you can also raise the height quite a bit. And then on top of that, you get this knob here where you can go ahead and tighten it or loosen it. Now, it works the opposite of lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, because when you go right, it'll loosen it, and when you go left, it'll tighten it. So something to keep in mind. But yeah, you can do that so you can make it as aggressive or as loose as you want it. And because it goes low, it just fits me personally a lot better. Now, when it comes to this headrest is actually very well designed as well. So when I sit in the seat, for me personally, when I'm sitting upright in the chair, I don't want a headrest. if you do, for me, I'm worried about a couple things. One, it's just not comfortable, but two, also when you have a headrest at all times, it can atrophy certain muscles in your back and in your neck, and so I don't like that. Now, when I'm sitting upright though, I don't want to feel anything tickling the back of my head. That is a pet peeve of mine, and I'm happy to say that the way that this headrest has been designed works in such a way that you can have it totally out of the way. You can see that I'm shaking and no part of my head is touching that headrest. But if you are somebody who likes to use it while sitting up, you can totally do that. You can go ahead and tilt it forward, and because the headrest is soft all around, you can use it while sitting upright in your chair, and this feels really good. For me personally though, I want to use it when I'm tilted back. And I'm happy to say that when you tilt back, this thing gives you a lot of adjustments so that you can use it. You can again turn it forward to look more forward a little bit. So if you want to look more forward at your screen, or if let's say you have something up high, I don't know why you would, but some people like to raise their monitors high, well you can go ahead and tilt it back and you can go ahead and look up by pushing it down, and you can look up in this position. It fits the nook really well, the controls are pretty good, and it's not too tight so you're not slamming it down on your neck. At least I haven't experienced that, and it's really, really well done. When it comes to sizing in this chair, this is where it gets interesting because me being 5'6", when I'm in this chair, the back, the seat cushion here is touching the back of my calf. And general rule of thumb is that you're supposed to be able to fit 2 fingers between the back of your calf and the seat cushion here. And you can see that I'm not able to fit any fingers in there. And this is what makes this chair confusing because on one hand, this headrest doesn't go all that high. So when I go ahead and lock the chair, you can see that it's sitting on the back of my head, but at the same time, you can't really be shorter because if so, then your legs will be crashing into this cushion, potentially cutting off circulation. So who is this chair made for? What size? I'm gonna say that the minimum height size for this chair is probably gonna be about 5'6", and the maximum height for this chair is probably gonna be about 6 foot. You can maybe get away if you're taller, but because this thing should really fit in the crook of your neck, you can already see kind of where it sits here. So I'm gonna say about 6 foot, maybe 6'1" for this chair. Now, if you're somebody who likes to sit like an ergonomic rebel and curl up in your chair, then you can be shorter than 5'6". It's just if you're someone who likes to sit upright, then if you're shorter than 5'6", you might just not enjoy this feeling of this kind of pushing into your leg. The maximum weight capacity on this chair, they claim, is 330 pounds. And again, the seat cushion being really dense, I believe it. The Clatina Mellet comes in at about $50 to $70 more than the SIHOO M18. It depends on whether or not you get this headrest. So $200 to about $220-ish. And for that money, you're getting a lot more features out of this chair compared to the SIHOO and compared to any chair on this list. So let's start from the bottom and work our way up. So first of all, the bottom, the leg comes in one piece, and that cannot be understated. A lot of these legs came in multiple pieces, including like on the M18, where you have to install the spokes one at a time. This thing is a single piece, and yes, it's a plastic, but it's a high quality plastic. When it comes to features and adjustments under the chair, again, phenomenal compared to every other chair on this list. On the right side, you get this tab here, and this is gonna be your height adjustment to move up and down. Then under here, you're gonna get a knob here, and the knob here is gonna control your back tilt tension. And this, having it on the side is so much more functional, and you're actually gonna use it compared to when it's under the seat, like on every other chair, including the SIHOO M18. So that tilt tension knob is here, and then right next to that tilt tension is a tab. And this tab is going to basically lock your chair in the upright position, and with every click, you're gonna be able to go further back one step at a time. And I believe you get 5 or 6 steps here. The one downside here is that unlike the M18, you cannot lock your chair in a certain tilted back position. So you can't lock it in that tilted position. Now, I initially thought that that was gonna be, I'm usually not happy with that, right? Even the super high-end ergonomic chairs from Herman Miller, Steelcase, none of them can back tilt lock. And it's always been a pet peeve of mine, except for the fact that the Clatina Mellet tilts back very differently than most other chairs. It's actually most reminiscent of the Steelcase Elite V2, which is a chair that is about 6 to 7 times the price of this chair. What it does differently compared to every other chair is that when you tilt back, you can maybe see here, let me go ahead and lift my legs up so maybe you can see better. So when I tilt back, you can see that the seat actually comes forward a little bit. And what that does is that when you're tilting, it means that the weight of tilting back actually lies more on your legs than it does on your back and your core like every other chair. Because on every other chair, when you tilt back, you're just kind of like sliding forward. This one, on the other hand, is not only much more like stiff and smooth, but also a lot of that is controlled by your legs position, because as you scooch forward, your legs are kind of digging a little bit more and more into the ground. And that means you can really fine tune and control how much tilt you're getting in this chair, and you're not having to exert any real muscle to hold yourself in that position. It's almost like you're floating, but you know your kind of legs are kind of doing a lot of that work. And because of that, I feel like you don't really need a tilt tension lock, because I could sit here all day and not feel like I'm using any kind of muscle whatsoever. On the left side here, you get this tab, and this allows your seat pan to come in or out. So if you're someone with longer legs, this could be really beneficial for you. If you're somebody who likes to really curl up and you want additional real estate, you can also do that as well. But this is where you need to be mindful, because if you're somebody who sits, even now as you're watching this video, if you're somebody who likes to scooch all the way back inside of the chair, might be a deal breaker for you, especially if you have longer legs, because if you pull this thing out even just a little bit and you scooch back in your chair, you can feel the edge of the seat in the middle of your butt cheek, and it's not a flattering feeling. It doesn't feel great. However, if you're somebody who's sitting slightly scooched up in your chair, it's not gonna be a problem at all, because if you just scoot up just a little bit, then I promise you're barely gonna feel that. Again, the taller you are though, the more chance that you're gonna feel it, because the gap just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, when it comes to the armrests are okay on this chair. They can go up and down, and then they can swivel in, middle, and out, and then they can slide in and out. For some reason, they can't go forward and back, and that is a little bit of a con here, because the way the armrests work is most chairs, the armrest just kind of goes up and down. This one kind of goes a little bit forward and back, so it's in a different position here than it is down here. And it just kind of feels a little bit weird, especially because the arm pads aren't very long. So some people have reported that it feels just a little too far forward versus wanting to like relax in this position. You're kind of forced to kind of put your shoulders forward in this kind of position like this. Now, when it comes to the backrest, when you compare it to the SIHOO M18, the Clatina Mellet's chair the backrest is about 3 inches higher than on the SIHOO M18. And that means that this is gonna be able to accommodate taller folks. But again, for reference, me being 5'6", when I sit in the chair, a couple of things happen. One is that I feel like the backrest is better designed here. When I sit in it and I open my chest out, I'm able to get a lot more spreading, a lot more openness before my arm bangs into the sides of this chair. So in that regard, it does feel better. Also, it means that the headrest will sit higher up, but more on that in just a minute. When it comes to the lumbar support, I think that this chair is interesting because at its lowest height, it fits me really well, but the lumbar support just doesn't go as low as it does on the SIHOO M18. And so for me personally, I find that it's not as useful for me. Like, I don't like it there, and I wish it would go even lower. Now, the lumbar can only go up and down, and it's kind of hard to access because you can only grab it from the top, so it's not really that easy to adjust up and down, and it just kind of slides on 2 edges. It does have a pad here, so you do get, you know, a decent amount of support compared to the Ticova chair, for example, where it's just a piece of plastic. And now we come to the headrest, and the headrest design is very similar to the SIHOO M18. You can see that when I'm sitting upright inside the chair, I can have it so that it's not touching my head whatsoever. So when I'm sitting, this is how I'd be sitting, and it's not really touching my head whatsoever. And then, but if you did want to, well, then you could lower it and tilt it forward. And if you do that, then you can find that it would support your head, your neck area really nicely. Again, soft all around, so nothing hard is gonna be digging into any part of your head. Now, when you're tilted back, on the other hand, you can go ahead and tilt back, and again, ow, this chair. When you tilt back, you can see that I'm able to adjust it so that I can look more forward, or I can adjust it so that I'm able to look a little bit more upwards while leaning back inside of this chair. But because the backrest sits taller, this is now where we're getting to sizing considerations. So for this Clatina Mellet, it's kind of weird that I'm saying this, but I'm gonna say again, the minimum height for this chair, if you're using the headrest, is probably gonna be around 5'6", because you can see that when I go down, I can't go really lower than this, right? And for me, this kind of fits perfectly in that nook. I can't imagine if you're shorter, if you're 5'4", something like that, I can't imagine that this is gonna fit very well inside of your neck. Now, if you're not using the headrest, I do think you could be shorter. However, if you do plan to use it, again, 5'6" is probably gonna be the minimum height. Same considerations with maximum height. The taller you are, If you are somebody who's tall, who's let's say 6'4", you could fit in this chair, but it depends on how you sit because of the seat cushion. So if you're somebody who sits a little bit scooched up in your chair, like even now as you're watching this video, how are you sitting? If you're somebody who's kind of like, you know, your hips are a little bit more forward like this, and you kind of sit like this in your chair, then yeah, it could work for you. The sky's the limit for height, right? Because if you're forward like this, you can't feel the back in this position. However, if you're tall, 6'4", and you like to scooch back in your chair, then yeah, it's not gonna work because your ass is basically hanging half off the chair, okay? So yeah, the headrest goes plenty tall, right? The headrest is plenty tall for you super tall freaks. It just really depends on how you sit and whether or not you'd be okay with this gap in the seat. In terms of weight limit, I keep getting this confused with Ticova, sorry. The Clatina Mellet, on their website, they state 275 pounds is gonna be the max weight on this chair. Final thoughts. The Clatina Mellet is objectively the better chair. It's got far superior tilt mechanism, far more adjustments compared to the SIHOO M18. But for me personally and my body type, I found that the SIHOO M18 fit me a little bit better. Not only does the lumbar support go lower, which fits right in that nook that I wanted in, but also the headrest, also because it sits a little lower, fit me better as well. I would love to know in the comments which of these two you guys would pick up. Until next time, everybody, stay safe, and as always, stay honest.